Right, yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. It is Tuesday, July the 8th at 5 p.m. We're in council chambers in Westport and we are beginning our committee of the whole meeting. We'll call this meeting to order.
We will begin this meeting of the Committee of the Whole by acknowledging that we are meeting on Aboriginal land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. Long before today, as we gather here, there have been Aboriginal peoples who have been the stewards of this place. In particular, we acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Wendat, and Haudenosaunee peoples.
Thank you very much, Councillor Card. Item number 3 on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. It's moved by Councillor Card, seconded by Councillor Crapper, that the agenda for the July 8th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted as presented. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. And item number 4 is any declarations of conflict or pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we'll go to item number 5.1, which are the minutes from the Historical Advisory Committee meeting. As moved by Councillor Crapper, seconded by Councillor Card, that the Committee of the Whole receives the May 7th, 2025 Historical Advisory Committee meeting minutes as information. Any discussion, anything that you wanted to flag, Councillor Card?
Sure, just a few things. There was a fundraising effort for donations for a bench for Don Goodfellow and is raised almost instantly. So there will be a brand new bench over there in his memory. The Facebook site is really taken off lately with going down memory lane on like all the historical buildings that are still in the village and making connections to where they are now. So it's pretty interesting if you have time to look at that. And there has been a fourth tour that has been up and around, so that was good news for the, the village and the museum as well, so yeah, it's good.
Thank you so much, Councillor Aragon.
Yeah, I have to admit, I don't often think about the work that goes on in the museum until I see these reports, and I realize the report is from May. But there were two things in there that I thought were interesting. One was about the train doors, and the other one was about the possibility of some type of animal getting into the building. And I'm just wondering if there's been any update at all about what we can do to close the hole in the roof to make sure that animals don't get in there anymore.
Councillor Cardy, do you have a comment on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe there has been some
Work done?
investigation into our friend up in the attic to safely remove them from the building and then close the hole up.
Very good. So everybody's happy? It's not the ghost.
No, it's definitely not a ghost. It is definitely a four-legged little friend.
Okay,
Yes.
so under control. The ghost is helping though. All right, thanks for that, Councillor Aragona. Anybody, anything else? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Great. Item 6.1 is the update of Building Services Agreement, the Residential Tenancies Act. Moved by Councillor Card, seconded by Councillor Crawford, that the Committee of the Whole received the report entitled Administration Update of Building Services Agreement, Residential Tenancies Act. And that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council pass a bylaw to enter into the new agreement and to appoint the new Rideau Lakes Chief Building Official for the purposes of enforcing the Ontario Building Code and the Residential Tenancies Act for the Village of Westport. Any discussion? Councillor Cardy and then Councillor Craft.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering, if there's a budget line. I know that the fees have gone up from $45 to $90 per hour. So I'm wondering if as a village, I don't remember seeing it, if there is a budget line for, when these fees do occur.
So, let the CAO, answer that question.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I believe there is a line item that we could fit it in under protective services, but I'd have to draw out what exactly that is. Traditionally, it's not, we don't have any invoices sent to us from them for these services because they haven't functioned as an inspector under the RTA.
Thank you.
Same item, although I will also say that as a person building a house right now, I have great admiration for the partnership. It's working well from a consumer's point of view in the village. Inspections are timely, communication's good. I think that's nice for us to hear once in a while. And we have a 20-year-old agreement, so it's a really important thing to review it after 20 years. Question around the $90 fee through you to Pim. Do we have a process? So let's say a person is non-compliant and requires repeated, which happens, visits by the CBO. Do we have a way of billing back for that to the non-compliant resident so that we are recovering our costs or some of our costs? And if we aren't, why aren't we?
Good question, because I'll take us down the path on how actually the payments get made.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Council Crawford. I'm gonna check the general rates and fees bylaw, but I don't believe we have a recoverable fee in there. But that's something we could put in for 2026.
Right.
I think it's just being drawn from the line item. But I can double check that ahead of next meeting.
And as a follow-up, then, I mean, because that would then serve as a, I mean, right now, the, doesn't serve as a disincentive to people. But if they have to pay for those visits by the CBO for something they didn't do that they were supposed to do, then it might just hit a little harder. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 on the same issue because they haven't done what they were asked to do.
Yeah, so just through you, Madam Mayor, let me make sure that Real Lakes isn't doing that on
Yeah.
our behalf, and then we recover that through them, and then I'll report back at the next meeting.
Okay, very good. Questions, team? Anybody, anything else? Councillor Carr?
Yeah, when we talk about rates and charges, the kind of, the first number there, and you will see some later tonight too, for administrative duties. Are we current with what we charge our staff out at? Are we recovering any monies that we should recover based on some of these numbers? I mean, that rate there just doubled. When we go a little bit further and look at some of our consultants, what they charge for the administration part of their, it's $100 an hour. So I'd just like to know that we're kind of in line with everybody else for professional services.
Yeah, for sure. Madam CEO.
Yeah, thank you through you, Madam Mayor. I think we talked about this a little bit when we contemplated the 2025 general rates and fees, and we put in a general administration services fee, which is cost plus 15%. But certainly, I think that rate study that we talked about through the budget will bring that to light, whether it needs to be higher.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. It's a good test year. Yeah, good questions, everybody. Go ahead, Councillor Aragona.
I just, I'm wondering about timing and the rationale, about renewing full agreement and whether or not we could just appoint the provincial offenses officer, based on the staff that's there now, given that we're under review for an organizational structure, and maybe this is something that we'd be looking at and maybe potentially bringing in-house.
I'll leave that to you.
Certainly, I can just answer a little bit of that. Because we have an application in the queue, this is what the timeliness of this would be, is we need to appoint an inspector for that purpose, but certainly the building agreement can wait if that's council's wish.
Yeah, does it make sense to renew the whole agreement or, just appoint the current building officer as provincial offenses officer? Is that something we can do?
What's the termination clause looking like in the agreement? Because it may make more sense to get it done and then
90 days.
revoke it if we need to.
Yeah, thanks, and that was in the briefing is, if we do need to give them 30 days notice of termination of the services, then we can, that's the termination clause
Okay,
in this updated agreement.
Okay. So I think the decision in relation to the part that we might take on is more than several months down the road.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
you good?
Yep.
Anybody, anything else? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay. Six point two is Public Works Blue Box Transition Update. Can't believe how time flies, because we're at the end of this transition. And I can remember us having discussions in here before any of the transition happened. All right, so it's moved by Councillor Crawford, seconded by Councillor Card, that the committee of the whole of the Village of Westport recommend council accept the report of the manager of Public Works entitled Blue Box Transition Update for information purposes. Now, we normally don't get you to do this, Mr. Evans, because this is on people's mind and they know that something was different with waste collection last week. Could you give the Coles Notes version out loud so anybody listening can get a sense of what this is about?
Yes, sir. Should have been the same last week. We're still in the same contract as we were before. The provider is still providing the services until September. So last week, our calendar had expired as we didn't have the information in order to issue a calendar. So we should have that within the next couple of weeks where we'll know when the recycling cut is gonna be. Most that'll be at a later report. This piece here is just updates to council. just to say that that process is continuing, and now there's been the website issued by Circular Materials.
And for the public, no, Circular Materials is a name of the program / company. It's not us just throwing a name at it.
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah.
It sounds, just so people understand, it's a proper noun.
And I think most importantly for residents and council, this is a province-wide piece.
Yeah.
Not an optional item. It's not something that council would have had an option way in. It's been worked on for a large number of years, off the top of my head, but it's 6 or 7 years at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
Where this transition been worked on.
Yeah.
And so the provider is gonna be different, come September 1st. All questions regarding recycling will be just referred directly to the, contractor or Circular Materials, depending on what their nature is. The village isn't gonna have anything to do with recycling.
And so the flexibility, I'm not prejudging the new organization in September. So first of all, nothing changes till September. So if people don't have an up-to-date version of what recycling is being picked up, which week, just continue the same process that we've been following along. So that's number one. And number two, sometimes I think our current contractor, Limerick, is quite flexible when it comes to the type of recycling that people are putting out. So we'll say it now, we'll say it again in a couple of weeks to remind people that moving forward, it may not be that way. This is now gonna be a government program, and it's not gonna be a contractor who's responsible to us. So when the lists come out on what that contractor will pick up, so that people aren't frustrated, they need to pay attention, because, you know, the number of calls we get when something would be left by the pickup because it wasn't picked up is concerning for staff, so.
And information from that, very much will be on that, site. The site was listed in the briefing note. That'll be where we go from now.
I wonder if we could, I know we got some really big signs made for our event tomorrow. Doesn't have to be that big, but I wonder if we get closer, could we put a sign that big outside, or not that big, but a big sign with that phone number on it, right outside in the bulletin board?
Yeah.
And you know, maybe a couple of other places in town for the first few weeks and leave this one here. So, because to go to a briefing note, to go to a website, some may do it, but some may just grab that. I think that would help. Because
And
this is, you say, a provincial wide program. I mean, the whole idea is to get the cost of waste management down by charging the producers for what gets recycled. And so, of course, the theory is they're gonna cut down on their cardboard and plastic because they have to pay for the cost of its removal. That's kind of the theory. And as you said, Peter, we've been at this for 6 years, and now this is the final bit of implementation. So you can tell by my voice, I'm quite excited. And the people who are, particularly the people in the village who are always, you know, conscious of the environment, this is cause to celebrate, because it's pushing the producers in a way that hopefully gets them on board because it's their pocketbook. So anyway, you go ahead. I just want to kind of finalize that so that people have something to cheer about. And we may talk about this tomorrow night. We're talking about the environment pillar.
so, so happy to get some more information. That'd be good. The good news is for the residents, we're one of the last municipalities to transition. I spoke to a number of colleagues, friends, coworkers, who live in other municipalities about what their experience was like with the transition. To a rural, they had no idea that the transition would happen. The folks that might notice the difference would be the businesses that make use of the Blue Box program.
Right.
So the village has never supposed to have been collecting, commercial at IC&I, so industrial, commercial, institutional, recycling. That is something that has been since Blue Box program started. Municipalities actually have to estimate how much IC&I, materials are collected, and then that's removed from the program costs.
Okay.
So going forward, if there is a place that the collector might be more stringent, is on obviously business recycled material. So there's number of businesses in the village that handle their recycling privately, the way that it's the program, the Blue Box program is always intended. There's always gonna be some that are kind of mixed use residential that are probably gonna get collected as normal. I can't speak for anybody. But there's a few locations. I believe I've spoke to every single one of them. already at least once. And then we're working on some additional communication just to make sure that that's driven home, that if a private contractor is coming back to collect it and certain materials is private and they've engaged private companies, they come up on obviously business recycling. It's not part of their collection.
Okay, so for us to know, because we're, as you're talking, we're all thinking in our mind of just those businesses that probably what we would see would be a huge amount of cardboard put out on the cardboard pickup. If it doesn't all get picked up, we refer them to the number because it's not our decision, it's that decision. Okay, just wanted to restate it for anybody watching again, and thank you for getting in touch with the business people. If anybody's got questions, in the meantime, they can contact you. Okay, thanks for that, Peter. Go ahead, Councilor Everyone.
Listening to the briefing and reading the briefing note, obviously, then the long and the short of it is for the regular resident, unless you're running a business, you won't notice a difference. But I'm wondering if there's, and even though Peter has indicated that in other communities, residents have not noticed the difference, wondering if there is any need to do some type of communication of some sort to the residents saying, this is happening. If you're curious about what is gonna be picked up, what may not be picked up, here's a website. Rather than just a poster, maybe there's something else we can do, because it does lend itself to some type of
Sure.
communication.
Yeah, and are they gonna put out that, when the company's identified is gonna be doing it, will they have an information sheet,
So
do you think?
they have, they've got a communication mandate. And they have put out some articles, some news things that I've seen just from watching it. I think most of the time it's pretty low key right now.
Yeah.
They have provided a number of materials that we can share on our website and post on our social media as well. Just specifically kind of prepackaged items meant to make their transition easier as well. And we can certainly take advantage of those to get a message out.
Could we do it on, sorry for jumping in, if you already had this, you were probably way ahead of me, but when we publish the 4-month schedule for the rest of 25 on what you're picking up, can we use part of that paper? Whether it's the back or the front for the messages that we're talking about?
That is being built.
Okay,
right as we
Perfect,
speak.
you guys are well ahead of us, well done.
I think the social media stuff, if there's an opportunity to use it, it's prepackaged. I always like
Yeah.
prepackaged communications if they're there and ready to go and they've been approved and all that, because it might be worthwhile just to use.
Oh, I figured that was a given. Yeah, sorry, I just, when do we have to produce something, but for sure the social media, one of our websites working.
Mhm.
Okay. So good, so we'll do social media as well as we'll put it on the back of, those schedules are popular, right? Because from week to week, you can't remember, if you don't put it out, you're recycling out one week because you didn't have enough. Then the next week comes along, you go, what is it again?
It's funny residents, sorry,
Yeah.
it's funny residents rely on it. I've had
Yeah.
a couple of my neighbors come up and say, do you know what's being picked up? And then your email went through, so.
Yeah, okay. So that's good, thank you for that. We have the motion read, we had some discussion, I'll just call the question, if there's nothing else, all in favor, carried. 6.3, Public Works Capital Projects Delegation of Authority. Was moved by Councilor Aragona, seconded by Councilor Cardy, that the Committee of the Whole received a report entitled Public Works Capital Projects Delegation of Authority. And that the Committee of the Whole recommend Council delegate the authority to the CAO to manage, engage subcontractors, dedicate staff and other resources to the Spring Street Reconstruction Project and the WTCC Arena Canteen Project up to the 2025 budgeted amount. Great plan.
Yes.
Yeah, great plan. In my opinion, you guys didn't jump up with questions, so I figured you thought it was a great plan as well. Go ahead, Councilor Cardy.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just wondering about timelines for the Spring Street reconstruction and the upstairs of the canteen. I'm wondering if there was any timelines for that.
Go ahead.
So I'll start with the canteen, 'cause it's a little more straightforward. Things that are done under existing code contracts are already in progress, and then as well as works that are being done in-house. So a lot of that work is happening right now. Should this be passed at the end of July, we will want to get this work done in August. I know Mr. Jesmore also wants this work
Yes.
done in August very much. So that's why we're looking at this right now. Spring Street, with the work done in-house, we also want to get a lot of this done in August. We expect in-house will take a little bit more time than if we had a contractor out, but the cost of the project will be reflected in that, so. We know we're gonna start removals hopefully right after the council meeting at the end of July. It's a good time for Public Works to get in there and get some of that work done, so we can get the contractors in, get the sidewalks for
Yay.
back hopefully as soon as we can.
Great. Tomorrow, I want to talk about the elevator tomorrow night in the canteen, but I can come back to that. Go ahead.
Is the reason through you to Mr. Evans that the library isn't included in that because it's already in your? Like, why do we not need to do the same thing with respect to library renovations?
They're gonna start before this, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's possible, so we don't have an approved design as of yet, so both Spring Street and the canteen have approved. Maybe not a design for the canteen, but everybody knows what the canteen is gonna be about. We have an approved design for Spring Street, we don't have a council approved finished design for the library yet, so we can't ask for the village recording. It's possible that this could be added, if we get an approved design by the July 22nd weekend, but I don't have that guarantee yet.
So follow up, I spoke to Kim about this already too, but should we have it ready, then would attempt to get that put into the same context at the council meetings on the 22nd. Because it'll be another big project at exactly the same time, with perhaps even greater pressures because of the requirement, I don't even know what it is, to spend the money by a certain deadline.
Yeah, if we get an approved project, by then, by all means, I think it should be included.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's to get us over the August hurdle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my worry would be, and August is an easier time for us to shut down the library in some ways than the fall, because we can give Pam some time off.
Okay, good. So we'll just watch for that. Somebody over here had their hand up. Councillor Ivana.
Yeah, I was thinking, I was listening to everything. It struck me that while we may understand what's happening with both projects, it might be worthwhile. And I know we've talked about it in other meetings, it might be worthwhile to actually just give a 10-line brief on what exactly is involved with the Spring Street reconstruction and the canteen itself.
Sure.
For anybody who is watching and has not heard it, or anybody that wants to refer to this later on.
Yeah, very good. Do you want to do that? No, I'm just kidding.
I could do it from
But the look on your face was worth the question. Mr. Evans, go ahead. Thanks for that, Councillor. Go ahead.
First, the short answer is, the same work that was done on the north side of Spring Street, done on the south side of Spring Street, so some new stormwater piping, new curb, boulevard and sidewalk. Between Church Street and George Street, just on the south side this time, so. The budget amount using some of the other different funding and grants that we get on a regular basis to complete that work. Paving will, the road and the road reconstruction will hopefully be in a future recent year. We are hoping that we can get the intersection of Spring and George done as well. We know it's in pretty rough shape, but it'll depend on how work goes with this.
Good.
Underway.
Good. And then canteen, Peter or Chris, somebody want to talk about what that's amazing thing is gonna look like come
Yeah.
the ice goes in.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, the plan for upstairs of the canteen is to put in new flooring, new ceiling tiles, new lighting, improved lighting. And a heating and cooling unit to regulate the temperature up there in winter and summer as we continue to try to use these spaces all year round, not just seasonally. So that all of those together will make for quite a different look and feel to that space by the fall.
Good. And it's still a construction zone, so we'll take care of tomorrow night that we'll make sure people can't get up there for the public meeting, just from a safety point of view. So is that helpful?
Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
And they answered it better than I would.
It's gonna be gorgeous. Councillor.
With a question related to Spring Street, and I mean, it's perhaps something you can't answer, but when we are doing a streetscape, is the potential for underground lighting something you've looked into? Like, is it at some point something we could consider starting to do bit by bit so that in some day way down the road, our wiring is underground?
Go ahead.
So to get the hydro lines and the communication lines underground, both were talked about. For Spring Street, the hydro, it was cost prohibitive. And we did make an inquiry to WTC. They indicated that to move the lines even to the other side of the road, it would all be at the village's cost, and it would exceed, the cost would exceed the work that we're actually doing there.
Right.
Just move the lines across. So staff are hopeful, but it's very much cost prohibitive.
And for people also, thanks for that, Councillor Crapper, and also for people to say, well, why don't you get it all done at once? And our answer to that is
Well, seriously, simply.
money.
Money.
But you could expand on
That is the
that.
biggest one, but also, so like the Bedford Street reconstruction, this is doing the surface works, sidewalk, the curb, the road pavement. The underground infrastructure, with the exception of storm, is all kind of midpoint in its estimated useful life, and it will go much farther, so we'll do a few of these before we do a complete reconstruction. Which at that point would be more likely to include electrical, when we're actually going down, replacing water and sanitary sewer at the same time. The costs become less when that depth is already being excavated, so 25 to 30 years, most likely for Spring Street, but
Yeah, so that's was the opportunity for us to remind the public that that the condition of the road is what is taken into consideration and the lifespan left in the road. And by looking at the top of the road in that area, a lot of people may say like, it's in rough shape. But there are things we can do about that, the below part is still got many, many years of service. So by doing the sidewalks, and we're working within the grant money that we have, although we're not incurring any debt to get this done. And yet then you'll be able to walk on both sides of the road and the condition will be much better. So I'm really, really pleased. Probably one of the worst stretches of sidewalk in the village. And so that'll be taken care of. So that's good.
And in addition to that, if I may, since with watercolors has come to be, it's a main thoroughfare in the village for so many people walking. So I mean, it's a lot of people ask, why there? Why not Mill Street? Or Center Street or whatever, but
Yeah.
it increased, like it's a lot of volume down that street now, and an important throughway to
Yeah,
our village
yeah.
center.
For sure. So that's good. So thank you for the nudge there. We've got the motion, but we haven't called the question yet, so I'll just do that. All in favor? Great. Town hall, so this is 6.4, town hall structure and feasibility review. Yep, the mayor in office. Moved by Councillor Cardy, seconded by Councillor Aragona, that the committee of the whole received the report entitled Public Works Town Hall Structure Feasibility Review. And that the committee of the whole recommend council direct staff to enter into an agreement with VG Architects to complete a review of the town hall in the amount of $18,500 plus HST. This is a budgeted item. Any discussion? Councillor Crowder.
The word mold jumped out at me, and with the history of our beer store, I just wanted to check whether there is in fact identified mold as shown in this building.
There was a little bit of mold a few years back and it was all remediated.
Awesome.
We don't expect to find any mold.
Great, and I will say that, in my opinion, $18,000 that was already budgeted, the only way to proceed with this important building and infrastructure for future councils and a growing staff is to do the legwork to get us grants down there.
Yeah, exactly right. And probably go up instead of out. Yeah. Anybody, any questions? Councillor Aragona.
I just wanted a clarification on what the study is actually looking at, because there was two terms used in there. Is this a renovation we're looking at, an expansion, or both?
Celia, I'll let you answer that.
Sure, thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. It's actually, if you'll recall, we sent the first facilities review to a committee of the whole meeting back in October 2024. And from that, council gave us the directive to prioritize occupational health and safety, AODA, things like that, ahead of the other facilities and priorities. So this is in response to that, to look at the accessibility provisions, to look at mold, to look at some of the health and safety issues that we need to address first, and to draw those out. Notwithstanding, we took a look at the fact that this building in and of itself, because we're growing so quickly, is running out of space. So if we're going to do that now, let's not put a Band-Aid on it. Let's look at the whole envelope together. rather than segmented.
So both.
Yeah.
But she's a much nicer way of saying it. Anybody, anything else? Call the question, all in favor? Good. Good work, staff. 6.5, Public Works Waste Collection RFP results. So it's moved by Councillor Aragon, seconded by Councillor Cardy, that the Committee of the Whole received the report entitled Waste Collection RFP Results. And the Committee of the Whole recommend Council direct staff to enter into a formal contract with E360 Solutions for the provision of solid waste collection and disposal services at an estimated annual cost of $58,960 plus HST. How long the contract is that?
3 years worship with the option for 2 years,
Okay.
Extension.
3 years plus 2. Well done. That's a great, so that's a great price.
Hmm.
It's a good, considering we were a little bit concerned because they weren't also gonna be picking up the recycling that may shoot up. Councillor Crawford.
Well, my question is, because we don't have the info about the other quotes, there were 3, was it primarily price or were there other things that led us to make this decision for this vendor?
Go ahead. Peter.
Primarily the price, all 4 bidders were qualified, submitted acceptable packages. Scored very similarly on their capabilities. So the price was the primary factor for their position.
Thank you.
Yeah, you raised an interesting question. We've had this was a tender.
Yes.
So we have had this question, we batted it back and forth at county's council. Council was not happy that staff was not putting in the other quotes. Staff told us that they had received a best practice legal decision. We said, let's go back to the drawing board because we want to see the quotes for tenders, for RFPs, it's a little different discussion, there's some proprietary stuff in there. And we have landed on tenders, the full report goes in, so whether staff want to look at that here as well. Understanding that it's nice to know if there's big gaps or whatever. We'll plant that seed with a lot of fertilizer for staff. Any other questions about the waste pickup? Call the question, all in favor, carried. Alrighty, 6.6 Public Works Water Tower Environmental Assessment. It's moved by Councillor Cardy, seconded by Councillor Aragona, that the Committee of the Whole received the report entitled Public Works Water Tower EA for information purposes, and that the Committee of the Whole recommend Council approve staff to engage JP2G Consulting to complete a Schedule B municipal class environmental assessment for an amount not to exceed 27,000 plus HST with a 15% contingency. Once again, Mr. Evans, I'm just gonna come back to you, because there's a fair bit of technical jargon. And if people haven't read our briefing notes online, can you give them the Coles notes of why on earth do you have to do an environmental assessment for a water tower?
So you have to do an environmental assessment on most construction projects. There's various different classes of environmental assessments depending on the type of work material. So a water tower is a major construction project and therefore requires.
Okay, that satisfy everybody? Good. Okay, Councillor Aragona?
So I have one question about timing. Since we weren't successful with the grant application, does the study have a lifespan? Is it a life cycle or does it last until the next time? Is it relevant? You and I are thinking the same.
Good question.
Will it have to be redone after a few years if we're not successful with another grant application?
Good question. Go ahead.
So 3 years, so again, there's a general idea of like a 10-year lifespan for EAs. It's not a real hard and fast rule. However, it is mostly based on the studies that form those opinions. So we've looked at studies in the past for geological work. That doesn't change after a decade, unless we are picking a different site or changing a different location. So something like this, if it's not done in the next decade, there might be a repeat of this smaller portion. But most likely any work that was done, especially expensive work that was done as part of it, would all be still usable and valuable for that opinion.
Great.
Okay, good. Councillor Cracker?
What is interesting about this to me, and I had one call from the public about it, is the use of connection fees, which up until this point, for most people, is associated with sewage wastewater. I'm happy to see flexibility in how connection fees can be used and clarifying the parameters around when they're used, I think maybe is something we could, and maybe tomorrow night is something that gets spoken to some degree, but my understanding is we have like $700,000 in reserves or somewhere in, or will at the end of this fiscal year. Well, and if I'm way out of line, let me know, but
You're out of line.
am I?
Yeah.
What do you think we have in the,
Well, we can ask staff for a proper report,
Yeah.
we're not gonna ballpark it here.
no,
And have it show up in the
so I'm way
newspaper.
above on that?
But we'll clarify
Yeah.
at some future point.
Well, I think that's what I'd be interested in knowing, when if we're allocating dollars from a $50,000 reserve, I'd have trouble with this. So knowing what percentage of our reserve we're using for this. I think it's a fair bit.
We'll know by council.
Yeah.
We'll know by council.
Yeah, but
And so just so you know, Councilor Pepper, I don't want us to estimate numbers.
no, I
Get
hear
in the
you. I
newspaper,
hear you.
so we'll clarify.
I'm
for
trying to
council.
settle down the general tenor of, wow, we're spending, how much money is there? The good news is that this money is money that comes to us as the alternative to development fees historically through new development for water, wastewater and water growth related needs.
Right,
And so it's a perfect fit. Happy we have it.
good, right,
And,
happy, you're happy.
Oh, gosh.
Because we know, you've raised this question many times,
Yeah.
when can it be used? We're using it, but we will get the exact figure for the council package as well, please.
Can I just make comment on that through you, Madam Mayor? Council already asked for a reconciliation on the connection fees, in relation to the municipal part 8 service connection fees that we were looking at as a result of the Watson and Associates study. And she has committed that the financial consultants have committed to bringing that to the council meeting in July on the 22nd.
Oh, there you go.
Just so you know,
Perfect.
it's a good timing for that.
Yeah, we'll get timing, and we'll get the exact number then.
Great.
Councilor Carey, I'm not gonna go to him first from here, I'm coming to you next time,
No.
but you go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just wondering if there's any legal ramifications. I know we are within the firefighter capacity right now, but if down the line in the 2030s, which is not that far away, if we aren't within their requirements, are we legally responsible?
Go ahead, Peter.
So Bruce, might not be might not be the best person to say specifically for legal liability, but the point is that's a standard. So as long as we are doing our due diligence and making sure that we're looking and making sure we have proper firefighting capacity as it relates to water, which I think the village has done so in abundance, and we're gifted by plenty of water around us. I don't believe that there's any liability from just continuing to work on this project and getting it done as we address it. We haven't recognized a major problem and then decided to do nothing. We recognize something that we have to do and we're doing something about it, so, that's my 2 cents. It's
Yeah.
not for legal opinion, but
Because of the pumper whips up, you're gonna, go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that one thing that we did mention was that the firefighting service that we contract have an approved pumper shuttle.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know how it fits into the equation of village water, but as far as the ability to fight fire in the village, it carries some weight there. And as Peter said, we're surrounded with water, so.
But that's also a nice segue to reassure the public. When they hear, you know, that there's not enough water in the tower to fight a fire, there's only enough water in the tower when it's full for 2 hours. Am I close? If you were to drain it for fighting a fire?
so if you don't mind,
Yeah.
so the calculation for the standard is, the tower to fight a fire for 2 hours straight with the pumps off, already at its minimum and leaving a minimum reserve for pressure, so it's
Okay.
kind of a triple redundant
Sure,
number. Not a
okay.
bad number, but it's, yeah, pumps have to are off and stay off, towers at the minimum, and there's a minimum reserve still kept. Most, yeah,
Okay, so that was helpful. And because we have the fire service has a pumper that they use throughout the township where there are no fire hydrants. Not only do they have the equipment, but they're experienced at operating it. Okay, everybody okay with that? All right, so, yes, so, the approval of the EA, we've read the motion, so I'll just call the question. All in favor? Carried. 6.7 is alcohol sales in the WTC Communications Center. And the recommendation is, the motion is moved by Councillor Aragona, seconded by Councillor Cardy. That the committee of the whole receives a report entitled Recreation Alcohol Sales in the WTC Communications Center. And that the committee of the whole recommends that council approves a trial period of 1 season for alcohol sales at the WTC Communications Center. And the license holder is the Lumberjacks. Okay, it's the motion doesn't say that, so what we're approving is kind of either open to interpretation unless we include that it's a 1 trial period of 1 season by the Lumberjacks.
Sure.
All right,
And that's
is it
what's-
okay with Councillor Aragona and Cardy?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, comments?
Had a couple calls about this one and I was interested in it. And to be honest, at first glance, of course, I don't know, doing alcohol at a. But I talked to a couple municipalities and as I talked to a couple of friends basically about it. I think people got their heads past the initial resistance, which maybe some people have about alcohol in a public space. If I'm correct in a couple of assumptions, one I wanted to clarify is that if I read it right. There would be an area, it wouldn't be people having booze in the stands.
Correct.
Yeah.
Only upstairs.
That's what people picture.
It's licensed upstairs only.
Yeah. And it would cost $14 for a great big one like at Maple Leaf Gardens or anything like
Never
that.
know, it's a fundraiser.
And that it is completely the accountability of the lumberjack. So I agree with the recommendation of that. I'd be way more hesitant for us to take that on. See how it goes for them, and then maybe we decide that it is an easy moneymaker, maybe we wanna get involved down the road, but for a year to see how it goes, it's kind of helps us.
Yeah.
And I don't see a lot of risk to it.
Okay, good. And just, not nitpicking, but because the public's listening to us, it's 1 season. So it's a season of
Yes,
hockey, right?
Right,
We photo batted this back and forth and back and forth my feeling was it was kind of fortuitous that a third party made the application. And then just as Councillor Crapper has said, that we can kind of observe, knowing that it's somebody else who's kind of carrying the load. I know you're nodding. Chris, would you like to get into the conversation before there's more questions? You're feeling fairly comfortable with this?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, absolutely. I think it's just a baby step. It's a nice start to see how it all will go. I talked to about 10 municipalities got back to me with how they do things. And I was looking for some kind of common theme throughout. And the fact is, there really isn't. That one municipality controlled the sale of alcohol through anywhere in the municipality and others want nothing to do with it. So I think there's no real guideline for how to do it. It's just how comfortable we feel in our facility at our events with how we want to run things. So I agree. I think it's a nice little almost controlled experiment to see how it can be run and how it is received too.
Yeah, it looks like the risk to the village has been really assessed and well managed. Okay, thanks very much, Chris. Councillor Kerr.
Just a quick question through your worship, would we be negotiating some kind of a charge for the space they're using? We charge for that upstairs.
Yes, I think so. The CEO's got her hand up.
Thank you, you, Madam Mayor. As other third-party organizations have rented space before and obtained special occasions permits, this would be the same process. It's just on an ongoing basis, so we can assess it for our purposes. But it's the same process as it would be, say, for your photo event, things like that, where a special occasions permit is secured. And then the fee is outlined in the general rates and fees bylaw.
Yeah, that's good. Councillor Cardy, then Councillor Aragon.
Is there a timeline? So let's say the Lumberjacks have a game at 3 o'clock on Saturday. Is there a start and end to this agreement?
Yeah, probably Mr. Chisholm thought about that yet, or is that yet to be worked out?
So, through you, Madam Mayor, so sorry, just to clarify, you mean within the confines of the hours of the game?
That's right,
Sale?
like end after the second period or whatever, is there parameters at least laid out yet?
Yeah, and I think that's within the guidelines of the permit that they have to apply for
Okay.
to say when they would begin and when they would end. It can't, for example, it can't go on well past the end of the game or something. It has to be confined to the event itself that they're applying for.
So that sounds like you probably would like to see that articulated in our policy or our agreement with them. And perhaps, find because their license would be for the game, it would probably be a suggestion that there can be alcohol served, and I'm throwing it out, a period of time, an hour before the game and for an hour after the game or something like that. I think you should maybe consult with some of the hockey people to get a sense of what that looks like. And we can approve it at council, so they're still well in advance of the first game, but I think that's a really good point. And then we know it's wrapped up. The game's over, the players have showered, they've gone upstairs for, to have a beer or whatever, but it's, as the rec manager, that if their game's over at 9, that they're gonna clear out by 10.
The bartender could say last call.
But work within not just their license, but also the rule of the building. That's a really good question, Councillor Harding. Can you do better?
I can add.
Well, now that I'm on the hot seat,
But you're so much fun having on the hot seat.
I do have a question about
Go ahead.
clarity, and then another one about insurance and liability. So
Okay.
let me start with the last one. So given that the group is renting the space, am I correct to assume that they're responsible for the insurance and they're liable for whatever happens in the space while they're using it and associated with the sale of alcohol? The village has got no liability here whatsoever. Is that correct?
Not exactly,
Yeah,
sorry,
not
3 month mayor, I do have an inquiry into Jeff to see if there's any additional liability with respect to approving this on a trial basis. He hasn't come back to me yet, so I'll have that answer for council. But there's always liability associated with renting a public space to an organization. As I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but they have their own insurance. So their insurance would kick in on their behalf, but our insurance is still covers the third parties in our facilities. If something were to happen, but I'll have a better answer for you next at the council meeting.
But it's a really good question that if we're requiring a start and stop time, then we want proof of insurance and we want to be named as a third party.
But sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, Chris, can you either confirm or deny, but I believe we're already listed as a third party because they use our facility for their games.
So, the funny thing is that odd time in my career, someone has not followed up that the insurance is current. And then when there's an issue, we forgot to. So a suggestion maybe through to you, Madam CEO, is for those sorts of things, there should be an annual review, even though hockey's here and we're all excited. What are the risk pieces that we need to check on at the beginning of every season?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, but with the other user groups as well. So that was a really good question. Hold on, now you've got another one?
Yeah, the second one is just clarification. The option that was proposed in the briefing note was option 2. And it named multiple groups, but what we're specifically looking at right now is a trial period with only one group,
Correct.
specifically the lumberjack.
And that's what the motion says as well, yeah.
Okay.
Because there are other groups that are interested, so if we wanna keep a net around it while we assess. It'll just be the lumberjack, so everybody understands that that's what we're looking at. Okay, you good?
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, through your worship, that the lumberjacks undoubtedly are insured. We just wanna make sure that their insurance, because of the change of status, is gonna cover that. Most outfits like that, get insurance per event. I know some of the charges to float have been like $200, $250 for one event. But if they're gonna put it on their policy, as a rider, we wanna make sure that we can see that on there, that we don't have any liability as a landlord.
Yeah, I don't know if we can avoid it all, but we can certainly make sure that they're fully covered. So there's some things, you may need to get some advice from Jeff or somebody to know what is it that you're looking for.
Yeah.
But, and that's not derogatory, I don't know, I wouldn't have thought of what Councillor Card just said. So it looks like this will likely pass to go to council, but there's some checking that we want done beforehand.
And just in addition to Councillor Card's comment, that there are, if there are any additional costs on our insurance, irrespective of what their insurance is, And maybe then we look at cost recovery, because this is a profit, this is gonna create profit for the lumberjacks, which is what they're hoping for. But if there's costs to us, we have a chance to at least know what they are and recover them from those profits.
Yeah, that's a good point as well.
If that was the main intention in reaching out to Jeff, just to see if there's gonna be any ramifications financial to the village. If this were to pass, so I'll bring that up, that information back.
Okay, but for now, we're prepared to move this on to council and then we'll wait for the other bits and bobs to come in. Anything else you want to add, Chris? No? Okay, then I'm gonna call the question. All in favor? Carried. Great. And now 6.8 is again, Mr. Chisholmore's, and it's a winter dock storage policy for Westport Harbor. And moved by Councilor Cardy, seconded by Councilor Aragona, that the committee of the whole receives the report recreation winter dock storage policy for Westport Harbor. And that the committee of the whole recommends that council prohibit dock storage within the village water lot at the harbor. And implement a monetary penalty for the removal of docks that continue to be stored there. So the background, of course, on this for the public is, did you want to do the background, Chris? Just 4 or 5 sentences so people know what we're talking about?
That's through my there. Yeah, during my time there as harbor master, every end of season, docks are being towed into the harbor for winter storage. I have been a little bit frustrated with the fact that I cannot find out whose docks they are. There's attempts at communication have failed. I do know one dock company that does a lot of work towing docks in, and they have been actually quite respectful of boundaries in water lot and closeness to the docks, but I do believe there are some private owners who perhaps not so much. So just, we don't really want to incur any damage to our own docks. And so we've debated this back and forth, talked to Parks Canada, tried to find other places that do things like this, and have come up with the recommendation that we do.
Okay, and CAO, you want to add anything?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, actually, just on that point with Parks Canada, they don't regulate their spaces either, they don't offer permitting, because they said we don't offer dock storage at any of their, like,
Okay,
what's
so
the word I'm looking for?
Well,
Locks, thank you, and any of their properties, so we, following suit with that, and in light of the, let's say, percentage of citizens or taxpayers that benefit from the service and don't, staff don't find the recommendation to continue it.
is that the point that most people who drag their docks in there don't live in the village?
That's correct.
Okay, just that's what she meant. Okay, so now Councilor Crawford and then Councilor Aragona.
In the analysis through you to whomever makes some sense of the situation, is there any potential were we to establish a reasonably, a good rental fee of renting out space in the harbor in the winter? Recognizing that there are costs to us, and I was appreciative of that information about the costs both in staff time and in potential wear and tear of our own equipment, very expensive equipment. Are we cognizant of the potential revenue? I mean, assuming there's a maximum number of docks you could have in there, let's say we could have, 15. If we charge whatever for those, would this be a different recommendation, or irrespective of that, is your analysis that the potential revenue will not offset the potential risks and costs?
Or CAO, go to you.
I was just gonna say, that was explored under option 2, just continuing with the winter dock storage policy and respective fees, which would be relatively high for cost recovery for staff time, for any non-compliance where we don't use bylaw enforcement right now, we would have to for things like that, but I'll let Chris expand on that.
Yeah, no, through you, Madam Mayor, I think if we were to go that path, we'd need some very comprehensive details in terms of how you would store your docks and how the communication would go, and if there are issues or if there's damage. I think you'd have to, you'd want to create a very comprehensive policy that would take care of all those small details that that could potentially become issues. So.
Because part of your point is, up until now, other than trying to keep them off our dock, we have no supervision of what's in there. And I think I hear your point, Chris, if we charge $1,500 a dock for the winter, you would want, there would be a lot more rigor that we would have to put in place. To supervise and make sure that they get properly anchored, they're not gonna bump into each other, if that's your point.
Yeah, exactly, a proper identification with contact information. We really have no idea whose dogs these are. I've only come to understand who some of these dogs are when this policy started to come to light that it was gonna be discussed this evening. And so, again, that was a little frustrating for me, to be honest, because we had tried putting up signage saying contact the harbor master, some signs that even put on people's docks to say, please contact the harbor master, and we were never contacted, so. It's just,
Okay, go ahead, Councilor.
I had a couple more points on it. One was to do with, I was communicating with my one person, who has a dock in there, but I had also communication with people who don't. And so the concerns that were shared by the people who do are obvious, and there are, in their views, in this person's view, their dock isn't possible, it isn't asked if it's a want or a need, like, are you unable, like I do at my cottage, to secure your dock to keep it safe over the winter? That person's case, they couldn't, so this was the option that they had been using. The other person's view was, even if you could raise $1,500 a dock, which would probably be enough to have people find another
There you
option.
go.
Is it what we want our limited staff time to be doing? And this was raised by a resident. They recognize that we are tight in the amount of staff time we have for a bunch of competing interests. And if it was 100% village residents, if it was like off-season boat storage down there for residents who are on a waiting list, and I'm even, because, I would like that to be 100% village residents too. If this was 100% village residents, I would think a little differently about it, maybe.
Okay.
But the fact that I'm hearing through your briefing note that is largely non-village residents, then I ask myself, how would you ever say yes to, and some of these village residents, one will live in the village and a neighbor will live outside of the village. I could see it being very challenging to be seen as fair, and I could see it being a big pain for us to manage.
Yeah.
Even if we wanted to, so I'm worried about it in that way, if we were to try and do it, that it could be very cumbersome and have limited utility when it comes to dollars.
Yeah, good points. Councilor Aragona. Can you go first?
With all that conversation, I have a question about enforcement. So if we go through this process, how, through you, Madam Mayor, to CFO, how do we enforce this policy? And if somebody does tow the dock in, what happens next? What do we do with it?
So, Peter's so funny. I saw your face. Peter, would you like to answer that question?
I can't hear it, so I'll put my Lila hat on, so, the mayor's bucket, we removed at the owner of the dock's expense.
Yeah.
So not an ideal scenario for anybody, so hopefully you get the word out.
So like towing a car.
Yeah.
Is that where the $600 applies?
Yeah.
In order to cover that expense? That was a question I had, like, where did that number, that's to do that? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the $600 came from, but it sounds reasonable to me.
Yes, it was just the both option 2 and the removal were weighed against the amount of staff time and equipment it would take, the current fees and rates bylaw. And what that would mean for making sure that that it doesn't cost taxpayers anything for the person to put a dock.
And it's returned safely.
Yeah.
In the same condition. Yeah, I'll come to you, man. Right? Go
I
ahead.
just have a follow-up question, and it's just because I like details, but we remove it and we take it where? We just float it out into the lake, or?
No. It's secure. It's
Okay.
secured against theft and damage.
Okay.
Councilor Perry.
I agree with the no dock storage policy. A couple of things that we've determined now that we do have control of that water.
Correct.
So should we allow dock storage either paid for or free or any other way, we are partly responsible. One thing that has always concerned me about docks stored there in the winter is snow machines flying through there in the dark, and they're helter skelter everywhere. So we would absolutely assume some responsibility, even if we charge for it. I think, a lot of those docks are there because it's convenient and cheap. If, as Councillor Crapper mentioned, if there was a charge, a lot of those people, just the smaller docks especially, would get them up on the shore and store them in the cottages. It'd save them a lot of work, but I think this is probably, you pay for the service likely of getting a tote over there, but I doubt somebody can charge for storage on our property. If they are, they shouldn't be, but they can definitely charge for the service of moving the dock to this area and out of the area. I see us liable on a couple of different fronts there, so. I think it's a problem that people have to work out for themselves if they have dogs.
And you know, the people are gonna say. It's Westport, it's not a big deal, we've done it for 25, 30, 40, 50 years. So just to those people, this is now 2025, and we have to take our decisions and lay that against the risk. Of continuing some of the things that may have been beneficial. The point that both Councillor Crapper and Mr. Chisholmore have made is they're not our residents. By and large, they're not our property taxpayers, and so I think I see which way this is going. Did you want to get in there, Councillor Carter?
Sure, I do have one more. So when we do come through with our communication, Chris, will you contact that company that by and large has been bringing them into the harbor and just letting them know ahead of time? Or I'm just wondering about communication.
Yeah, maybe we could get that if we take this decision now, it'll be in July. We could kind of get a sense what the communication strategy is gonna be, who are you gonna touch? And then is there a way, I think that's where Councillor Aragona was going. Is there a way that we can put something at where the boats come in? And we'd have to check with the feds on that. Can we put something across? I don't know. Is there some sort of way, while it's still open water, that we could, barricade it off or line it off or something? But maybe you could let us know what the communication strategy is gonna be. It looks like this is gonna go ahead. And I don't think you need it by council when we pass it, but, we sure would like to make sure that everybody, knows it. It's about 15 to 20 people, I'm gonna say, so it's not that big a group, and likely word of mouth is gonna get to most of them. As soon as we go off air here, I'm sure people will be phoning each other saying that you can't do it anymore. Does that help? Okay, anything, does that help? Where you're on communication strategy, you'll come back to us. Councillor Crafty, you're good? Councillor Carter, you're good? Okay, gonna call the question then, all in favor? And that's carried. Good discussion, team. Any notices of motion tonight? Any announcements? Go ahead, Bill.
Just wanna announce that the Westport Car Show is going 2.5 weeks away, and plans are all in place. We're expecting, last year we had 250 cars in the area, and we're expecting a lot more this year. We have more pre-registered cars, and we're expecting at least 300. I'm hoping that we hit that. And it's not just for drivers. Keep in mind, it's a show for the whole family, so we are advertising it as such. Make sure you bring your significant other and your kids and your friends and your grandmas and your grandpas, and take a look at the cars and enjoy the art on wheels. July 19th in Lockwood Park.
Good.
Just not to have Councillor Aragona panic, but that's a week and a half away, Councillor, not 2.5 weeks away.
I'm gonna panic now.
Time is flying.
That's right.
That's okay.
Okay.
Thanks for making me panic. I think we're in good position, so.
Good, very good. Mr. Chisholmore.
Right, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to mention too about movies in the rain. Our last movie, again, we had 100 people come and watch, and due to the generosity of New Life Thrift Store, that movie was sponsored, and so admission was free. Our next movie is coming up on July 25th. It's gonna be a double header. And the first movie of the evening is once again sponsored by New Life Thrift. And the second movie of the evening is sponsored by Hurley Home Building Center.
Oh,
So you have the opportunity to come for a double feature. Admission is free for both. And just very, very pleased with
Awesome.
the sponsors that have stepped up to be able to give this to the community and
That's great.
watch free movies, basically.
That's great. Thanks for letting us know.
Just a comment on that, I probably had more people ask me about that and say how great it was than we have about some things that we consider very, very important in the life of the village, but that is that's an all-star program, and I guess one of the questions I've been asked, and I'd leave that to our rec manager, when are you gonna do an adult movie? And I don't mean adult in that sense, something that is not animated, let's put it that way.
Yeah, sorry, I should mention then the two movies that we're gonna show for the double feature. The first one is more of a kids movie, a Despicable Me 4 with the Minions. But the second one is more of like a superhero kind of Captain America, Brave New World. So that's, I guess, more of a teenager, young adult movie, but it's.
Would you like to go with me to that?
My favorite.
It's just, you know, when you look at the people that are there, I would say probably half of the people watching the first three movies have been young people, so like kids, so it's
Yeah, and young
Great.
parents.
yeah,
Nice.
so it's been wonderful.
Good. I have three quick things. Tomorrow afternoon, 5 o'clock. At the WTC Communications Center is our opportunity for the public to be updated on our corporate strategic plan. And so we hope that the public comes out. We have a great evening planned for you. We get a very brief, very short briefing from the mayor. And then we have 4 pillars to our strategic plan. In truth, we have 5. The 5th is financial, and it's internal. So the other 4, each counselor is going to take a place in the arena. There'll be chairs for each counselor's group. Hopefully we get enough people that we divide it into 4 groups. And so small group discussion, we're kind of using the same idea that we do when we have breakfast with the mayor, that we have a bit of a brief and then people talk in small groups about it. But in this case, the public will be invited to, first of all, listen to perhaps Councillor Carden and the pillar that she's updating on. And then we'll all move at the same time, and then her group will go to Councillor Aragona's group, and he'll update and look for input on the pillar that he's talking about. So it's not formal, it's not really well or tightly structured. We want to make sure that everybody gets time with a member of council talking about a pillar. Reminder, it's a corporate strategic plan. So if the public comes with some grand ideas, each counselor will have a member staff recording. And those may well be things that go on the strategic plan, which would come next. So not to disappoint people, but we have what we have, which is a corporate strategic plan. That's what we have to provide feedback on. And yet we won't lose any additional things that people suggest. So 5 o'clock at the arena. I think staff have spent a lot of time getting ready for this, and I'm really looking forward. I hope the public shows. I attended the Upper Rideau Lake Association meeting on Saturday morning. It's the 11th year that I've attended as your mayor, and gave a fairly brief update on the issues that we talk about here that impact the lake. The 3 that I can think of off the top of my head was I updated them on the D51. How many connections we have currently available in our reserve capacity for wastewater, which is 292. And we have approximately 70 applications for that. I shared with them that we had asked staff for a high level stormwater report. What would it do? What would it mean for the rest of the village to have a stormwater plan? And that we got that it was broken into several phases. And we asked staff to come back with a bit more information on phase 1 in the fall. And so that was, and also talked about the environmental assessment. I talked about that in connection with the D51, saying that the capacity is not the urgency. We still have an issue with chlorides and, you know, is that a challenge, or that's becoming a challenge for us. But I did share that we want to get the EA wrapped up in the next few months. Not with an implementation plan, but with a recommendation so that it's done. And so talk about being shelf ready, shovel ready, on the shelf, shovel ready. If we have to kick in or the next council has to come along, at least we'll have a final package. So I reminded them that at last year's meeting, we had taken the study off the table, and therefore the discharge, the water discharge, surface discharge into lake was off the table. And so for what else we're doing with the EA, it is not in relation to the lake. So I satisfied them. I told them that whatever plans we make, we're not doing any digging, but we do have to bring this to a close for sure. Knowing that we are not gonna start digging a new wastewater system, but even if we are going with another LSSDS, and we're continuing to look for land, but I would like to bring that together, you know, by March. If we can get it done by March, that is, I think, lots of advice, lots of advance notice to staff and consultants. That there's really not a lot more technical work to be done. So that's Erla. I also had a funny situation this week. I've talked to staff about it. It was a contractor who is working in an area of the village where there's 4-hour parking, on-street 4-hour parking. And the contractor has pickup trucks for the crew. And how do they get around the 4-hour? One of the businesses close to them had let the contractor know that there's a limit on parking, so it was becoming a subject of discussion. That's why they phoned me. And so in the phone call, I just explained the challenges and that there's nothing that we have, no mechanism we have to give them a permit to extend beyond that. And I offered some suggestions on what they could do with their vehicles, which wasn't great, but were well received. Then they wanted to have a bin. And, you know, that was another challenge where when they're doing the demolition, and again, there's nothing we can do about it. But I think it's an interesting question, that sometimes contractors come into town and they've got to be in that area for, you know, a week or two. So I would like us to ask staff to bring back some suggestions this fall. And, you know, it may be a permitting opportunity that people could come in and say for this period of time, they need to be able to be forgiven and park in the area. This is a community member, he's a taxpayer, a businessman, was very reasonable, very, very understanding. I said that I would bring it up tonight, and if I got head nodding from everybody, we would just ask staff to bring something back. And, but it wouldn't help him, it would help the next contractor, and he was very understanding. So without putting it on table and everything, I'm kind of doing it a little on announcements because I feel I owe this person that I am speaking out loud to his concern, really crediting him for being a gentleman, and we'll get staff to follow up. So that's a head nod from everybody. All right, Councillor Howard, you have a
Oh, just
question?
that the bin rings true.
Yeah.
I mean, parking, you know, there's, assuming the person that does have a disability, et cetera. The bin is a real issue, and I'm doing a construction project. We have to have a bin for a
Yeah.
couple of weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate that I can house it. Some people aren't, some people aren't, depending on where they live. So
Yeah,
permit sounds like a reasonable approach.
yeah, some sort of approach that gives us some flexibility. That meets certain criteria, so it doesn't have to come to us. If it meets that criteria, staff can just give the permit.
I also wanted to add to your, on the strategic plan that, the CEO has provided as well for people who can't attend or want, in addition to attend a survey that is just where people can put in ideas under the 4 pillars, and that's open till the end of the month, I think.
Good.
So it's a nice option.
Yeah, good. So hopefully for the public that's watching, come on out to the arena tomorrow at 5 o'clock. No tours yet, still a construction zone upstairs, but tours will be coming. And that's all I've got. Any questions from the public or the media? Alrighty, well, then that's us, team. I've moved by Councillor Aragona, seconded by Councillor Cardy, that this meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Village of Westport be adjourned at 6:10 PM.